Hey, horror fans, once again, it is me, the Horror Miser Money G. Still doing the 31 Days of Horror. It's now time to do the review of the latest found footage horror film franchise. This time it is VHS 85. Yes.
Don't fuck with them hoes.
Now, VHS 1985 is a 2023 American found footage horror film, horror anthology film. Segments were directed by David Bruckner, Scott Derrickson, Gigi Saw Guerrero, Natasha Karnami, and Mike P. Nelson. Yeah, so we have five segments, and those were the directors of the five segments. Now, for this particular film, unveiled through a made for TV documentary, we have five tales of found footage horror emerge to take viewers on a terrifying journey through the grim underbelly of the 1980s, particularly 1985. Now, when it comes to found footage horror fans, there's practically only been two that have found relative success as a film series. I mean, yeah, we have Record, we had Cloverfield, some would say the Blair Witch Project, but basically there's only been two that have found success as far as found footage horror film series has found some success. First one is the Paranormal Activity film series created by Israeli film director Oren Peli, and the VHS film series was created by film producer and founder of the horror website Bloody Disgusting, Brad Masika. Now, what makes VHS a little bit different from other found footage is that it shows people watching VHS tapes, which has a possessive influence over the people who watch the tapes. From the first one that came out several years ago, where the people just puts in a VHS tape and they see some stuff that happens and it affects them very weirdly, right? And that's kind of a nice little niche that Brad Miska and his other people have created here with the VHS found footage film series. Now, kind of despite the lackluster performance at the box office, I believe only two were released in theaters. The rest have been released on pay-per-view or DOV. The series has had fine films with two tie-in film features based on the segments in the series, along with a social media miniseries. So, despite the lackluster performance in the box office, this has been a pretty successful film series. So now we have the latest entry into this franchise, this time from stories based in the year 1985. So it's VHS 85. Now, I think this started with, 99, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that. I think the last one was 99, but after VHS Viral, they've now based it upon years, certain years throughout, on the series, probably because of all the backlash Viral received. Now, using a made for TV documentary as a premise, the main story, or what we call the frame narrative, features a team of scientists studying a ship shifting alien named Roy. Now, just to give on the fact, it was a nice, we see certain interludes throughout the breaks where we see the main scientist trying to find out how to communicate with Roy. One of the scientists leaves after when they realize that something is wrong. And of course, by the time when we get to the epilogue of the Roy segment, we find out why. Sometimes you just leave stuff alone that you don't comprehend. Now, the first story, called No Wake, involves seven friends who go water skiing on a lake when an unknown sniper starts killing them. What the hell? The sniper kills at least, I think, all seven of them, but unfortunately, that leads to something unusually happening to at least four of the victims. I won't reveal what it is, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. In the second segment, called God of Death, a massive earthquake kills Mexico. In Mexico, kills a broadcast team except for a cameraman named Lewis. Now, after he's freed from the rubble by a rescue team, they find themselves trapped below the building due to aftershocks when they encounter something very terrible and horrible, putting all their lives in danger. Now, in the third segment, I think you could call it Techno God. I think that's how you said it. It's spelled weirdly. A performance artist who performs a show where she puts on virtual reality headset and gloves, trying to summon the god of technology because she believes that we've destroyed our god because at that time everything was based on virtual reality, and that leads to something very shocking happening to the artist. Again, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. In a segment called Ambrosia, the Wrigleys are celebrating a family tradition for a teenage girl named Ruth. Now, while most families either have bar mitzvahs or sweet 16s that they celebrate, it seems that the Wrigleys have something rather unusual that they celebrate, and this leads to deadly results. Again, won't tell you what that is, but if you've seen the segment, you know what I'm talking about. As you can see, I'm not spoiling anything here. Now, in the final segment called Dream Kill, the police are investigating a series of home invasions where the detective in charge says he's been receiving videotapes of the murders weeks before it happens. We get to see them doing the investigation. He says, "This all looks familiar." And he says, "Look, I just got a videotape this about a couple weeks ago. And now the murders actually happened." Now, this leads to an interesting encounter when it's revealed who the person is responsible for sending the tapes and who is committing the murders. I actually enjoyed this segment very, very much. Something happens in part of the segment, and I won't reveal what it is, but I found it very interesting. I've always enjoyed watching these stories because it's amazing how well the filmmakers do in making it seems that you're watching a VCR tape back during the 80s. I really enjoyed watching the series because they do a fantastic job of like you're watching the actual VCR tape. From the tracking errors, from the bleeding in and out, from recording over a previous video, and then the skipping gives me fond memories of watching the great old videotapes back in the 80s. It reminds me of going to Earl's Video Store, which was a video store back in South Philadelphia back during the 80s, and getting all those VCR tapes and watching all those crazy horror movies that I would rent out. You're putting into the VCR player and you get all the tracking areas, and sometimes it skips because the tape has been worn out. That's why I really do enjoy how the filmmakers make you believe that you're actually watching those type of tapes that you saw back during the 80s. Now, all the stories are done very well with some decent acting, plenty good practical effects, though nothing really stands out like Amateur Night, the segment that was in the first film and was also used as the basis for the feature film Siren. I mean, they're all pretty good, but most of the time in horror anthology films, there's always this one story that stands out the most. Unfortunately, really don't get that here, but they're all still good stories. Just nothing really stands out in my opinion. I also like the fact that two of the segments are actually combined to make one story. I won't reveal what it is, but if you know those two stories, you know what I'm talking about. And then another segment uses an event that happens in real life, has to do with an event that took place in Mexico at that same time at that year, and they use that as a basis. This is what caused the massive earthquake that happened in Mexico. And in another segment, it has a character who's related to another character from another movie. The character states that he had a sister that had this type of a gift, and unfortunately, she wound up killing herself. And then he said it also his niece also has the same type of gift that she saw before her brother was actually kidnapped. Now, I won't say anything more, but if you get what I'm saying, you probably realize what I'm talking about. But I actually thought it was great that they intermingled all that information from another movie. No, you really have to give credit to all the directors and writers, as once again they've done an excellent job with the stories they tell, how the film looks, and the surprises that take place. I mean, there's some interesting stuff that happens throughout all the segments, and they do a great job. In all the segments, just like with the previous years, like the last year, I thought it was pretty good. But this one, they did a great job in all the stories. The acting is fantastic, and yeah, I got to agree, they did a fantastic job here. Now, while not better than other anthology films, they're probably not one of the better ones in this series because I think the second one, VHS 2, is still the best out of the franchise. It's still an effective anthology horror movie with some good stories, some good acting, and some great practical effects. I really did enjoy VHS 85. So I'm going to give VHS 85 3 out of my five bloody gold coins. Like I said, the nostalgia of seeing how well it looks reminds me of watching VHS tapes back in the 80s. The acting, the directing, the stories, very well done, guys. Like I said, you get 3 out of my 5 bloody gold coins. So there you have it. That is my video and review of VHS 1985. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, like, and share because it really helps out with that YouTube algorithm. Also, have you seen VHS 1985? If you have, what you thought about it? Leave your comments in your comment section below. Tell you what you thought about it. Again, no spoilers, please. Also, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. That way, we notified anytime when I put a new video such as this one. Once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as the Horror Miser Monty G. And always remember that horror rules. And I see you in my next video. Yeah, guys, stay safe out there.